Again, part 2, Canada. View from Luffield, all that jazz. Let's get onto it because there's a massive bit of this race that no doubt will take up a majority of our time and will no doubt lead to one of us walking off crying.
I wonder which one. Just a quick note before we do get onto the race. Just some landmarks to point out. It was Haas's 200th race in Formula One. So congratulations to Haas. Genuinely, when you consider where they come from as well,
and how small the budget is.
Yeah,
absolutely phenomenal.
That is a cracking effort, to be fair. And we like Haas here, and we've said this on a previous episode. I don't know which one, so watch them all.
Go watch them.
Yeah, the Gunther Steiner, as much as everybody in the world of Formula One loves him, he was not the person to take Haas forward.
No.
And it's massive to see just these sort of improvements they're making and stuff. So brilliant to see Haas still in the sport for 200 races. We don't say 200 years, 200 races. And it was also a landmark for Alpine and Aston Martin, or under their current guises, of course. So we're not talking about the factory team. 100th Grand Prix for those two in those teams, obviously.
And as you can tell, as much as we slate them, we do have a soft spot for Aston Martin as well, due to they're a Silverstone team with beautiful green paintwork.
Yeah, we slate them because we want to see them do better.
Oh, gotcha.
So anyway. So where do we start? So the track temperature started at, it was 46 degrees, which did look like it might have been bad news story for Mercedes because they're generally not that great when the temperature's hot. I think there was even a joke made that Toto Wolff wasn't wearing a pullover, so therefore Mercedes wouldn't do well. They don't tend to like the hot temperatures. No. And as a McLaren fan personally, I looked at that and thought that should be quite good for McLaren. Stay tuned to find out if it was. Gasly and Lawson were starting the pit lane. We did mention that in the qualifying episode, both for taking a new engine. And also it was interesting from the start that it was after what happened in Spain, we were treated to a Max Verstappen versus George Russell front row, both starting on used mediums as well. So there was no advantage either one way or the other. That had the potential to be fireworks.
I won't lie. Were you a bit disappointed after how it played out?
100%.
They just all followed each other into the corner and went.
We didn't rehearse that.
No.
I'm actually glad that you picked up on what I was trying to throw out there. Yeah, it was. I mean, other than one thing I will say, other than George Russell got a brilliant start off the line.
Yes,
and I think he needed to, because I do think that puts Max off from trying anything. So cracking start from George Russell, and I think he needed that. Also cracking start from because Oscar Piastri started on the new medium, brand new set, and cracking start from Kimi Antonelli as well, and brilliant driving from him to just leave it in there. I think Piastri gets a little bit stuck behind Verstappen. I'm not blaming Verstappen.
He got caught out, got left on the outside, and I think with the view of the championship, he thought, I'll fight another day.
But fair play to Kimi Antonelli because it absolutely showed magnificent bravery to keep it stuck in there and to get third. And to get third that early against the McLaren, which had struggled all week. I say struggled, not been where it had been all weekend, was important. So cracking move from Kimi Antonelli. Alex Albon. I mean, I'll bring this up as a summary for Alex Albon because
my God, how he kept that out of the wall, by the way.
Yeah, he did really well for that. But I mean, everything for Williams. We said this on a previous episode where everything that Williams did was the wrong thing to do. And it felt like this was the same. They tried to hang him out on his strategy to keep him out there longer.
After he shouted enough about...
Yeah.
But
even he was off it. I don't know what was going on with Williams had. And again, you can see the T-shirt. As British Formula One fans, there is a soft spot for Williams. I have zero idea what they were doing this weekend. And it started with the engine cover coming off Albon's car, Sainz getting blocked by Hadjar in qualifying.
They can't blame him for that.
No, sorry, but my point is, it just felt like they were either getting stuff wrong or stuff was just going against them.
Which is weird because Spain was the same. Are they being punished now for not bringing any parts? Because you know, they're in a really good place in the constructors as well, and this is not what they need. But that said, Albon had a nightmare, and for anyone who saw it, going back to Ant's point, because we've kind of strayed, he took to the grass in quite an impressive way. You know, that thing flew, to keep it pointing forwards and not in a wall was immense. And Nico Hulkenberg, by the way, Mr. Experience, reading what was happening and driving past two as if they'd parked up was mega to watch. But
it was.
Albon did look off it. On the other side, Sainz looked like the most aggressive man on the track in places.
But at the same
But
time,
he had to
without
be.
doing anything, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, he wasn't setting the world alight.
No.
But the thing is, if he'd have been in the Ferrari that he was in last year, he would have set the world. I think he was out driving that Williams
Yeah, I agree.
in its current guise. And
But on the Monaco episode, because I don't want to talk too much about Williams, because I don't think they did enough to warrant much of this.
no, we need to get through this because we need to.
Well, Phil asked a question at the Monaco one: is are Williams going to regret not bringing any, effectively giving up on this car and concentrating on 26? I said if they was it you or anyway whoever. I said if they do it in,
It was a Phil.
if they still finish fifth, then no. If they lose fifth, and Aston Martin have brought some upgrades now, Haas, we've said are there or thereabouts. If they lose fifth, then they've got some big regrets. And the two last races, Spain and Canada, they genuinely look like they could lose fifth.
They do, but the next two tracks, knowing how Williams go, should be quite kind to Williams.
Should be.
So at the moment, no, they're not regretting it. Next two races, they shouldn't be regretting it. If things keep going wrong, they'll definitely be regretting it, I think
they'll have some genuine discussions to have if Austria goes as bad.
Yeah, bring me a cushion. I'm going sitting on that fence again for a bit, I think. With
yeah. But Williams have disappointed us. And again, ever since we started praising them. And in fact, it's ever since that T-shirt was in the background.
I blame Phil for that then, because I know that's...
Yeah, because that's his. In fact, take them all down. So...
Take that one down then, because we might... Oh, there he is.
Yeah. There was a really early stop from Verstappen as early as lap 12, and I think that...
Covering Antonelli.
That triggered everybody then to... Yeah, it was. But that triggered then everybody to have to stop. And again, he did the same thing later on in the race as well. He took a relatively early stop. And then again, that triggered everybody else to have to do something. That was lap 37, his second stop. Just looking for my next note. I do apologise. Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. There was...
Well, you've missed a little bit first. Can we... Whilst we're talking Ferrari, we'll go to the Leclerc tantrum again in a minute. Hamilton started really well.
He did. Sorry, I'm not. I'm just stuff out on purpose.
No, I'm throwing this in because there's a pun that's coming. It's coming. Hamilton started really well and was keeping pace with the cars in front until he hit a little furry creature that's well known in Canada called a groundhog, which led to... Are you ready? Are you ready? Led to it being another Groundhog Day for Ferrari.
I heard that last night.
I threatened to use it and I'm using it. All right, there we go.
It's bad.
If you need me for stand-up, if you just contact me.
but no, to be fair, sorry, and I've not missed this out. The Groundhog.
It was a shame because that's 20 points of downforce he was losing. Which,
it's about half a second, I think, Martin.
Yeah, which led to he was probably out driving the Ferrari. It's not the fastest when it starts behind things. It's quite quick when it's up front.
I mean, Hamilton just had one of those races where he kind of wasn't doing a great deal. But I actually thought the race, it would have been interesting if he'd have still been there or thereabouts, because I thought the race was slowly building up to like a crescendo. Like it was doing nothing, but it was intriguing. I think at one point, I wrote, you go. At one point, one of my bullet points is intriguing, but not an exciting race.
It just needed a stick to poke it, didn't it?
Yeah,
so, come on, do something.
But it was interesting because you had different people on different strategies, and people were reacting to the early stops others were making, and nobody was sort of prepared to do something too different because it was too much of a risk. But yet you had Leclerc and Norris who were on different strategies. So and they could have maybe gone for a one stop, but then Leclerc gave up on it. Probably not the right words, but Ferrari gave up on it for him, which he wasn't happy about.
Well, no, he wasn't. And Vassar got interviewed about that this morning, late last night. And he said he sat down with Charles and he'd explained that they'd have had to have done 50 laps on that hard tyre to have made up for the deficit and they decided that it wouldn't have done it. Now,
don't get the hard as last year's medium.
Exactly. Now, the issue I have is that they put him on another hard. They could have thrown him on a medium and prayed for a safety car.
Yeah.
Just do something different. So they kind of went very risk averse. But I suppose if you're nursing one car that's very poorly and losing a lot of time, which was a shame again, because I thought Hamilton started the race really strongly. As did Leclerc, actually. He was keeping ground with Norris.
He was. He certainly wasn't running away. And it was only when the few in front started to pit and Norris was given a bit of free space that I wouldn't even say he ran away from him. He started to extend the gap.
He did, but then it started closing just before the pit stop. And, Leclerc screaming, "Why have you done this? It's got a plan C." Ferrari's wonderful alphabet of strategies. They seem to have 17.
I did love how Ferrari went plan
Copy.
B, and he went, no, I think plan C, and they went copy, and then they brought.
And they boxed him and said plan B, aren't we?
And he went, what we doing? And he went, we're doing plan B. Right. So you said copy, but you're not considering.
But a copy could have meant we'll take it away and think about it. They've looked at it and stuck with what they decided.
Yeah, because the interesting thing, they actually said it through commentary, if you remember, that it's got to be a good balance because the drivers are giving you the ones to feedback with how does the car feel, how does the tyres feel, how's your deg, where you're going to be up to with regards to that. And the pit wall are the ones who can tell you if you box now, you'll come out in a massive 24-second gap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you're not.
Let's take advantage and box it. But at the end of the day, I think Ferrari could have played it riskier. I don't blame them for not doing. I think it was another meh race for Ferrari. But yet again, we've been promised upgrades for Austria that are aimed at Silverstone, which keeps me smiling, knowing that I've spent nearly half a mortgage to go. But anyway, moving on, Ferrari. They were quick, but not quick enough. I think is where they're, which is a lot better than where they were at the start of the season. It's
slight improvements.
They'll end up being second in the constructors again. I know they've dropped a place, but that's where they're aiming. I think that's everyone's aim. You ain't catching McLaren.
Yeah. Unless.
But we'll move on. Alonso was mega, and I love the bit where Norris sent one up the inside, and Alonso pretty much pushed him through.
Yeah,
he just went, I'm not having this. You're not my fight.
And that's the clever bit. That's how Alonso's going to continue to get himself 2 points here, 3 points there. He knows his fight's not Orlando.
Stellar job, by the way, again from Fernando. And another guy who was stellar, who I think you did say in the View from Luffield WhatsApp chat that you're buying some Sauber gear at. Handsome devil.
Can we leave this till later on because
we're going to disagree here, but yes, we can.
I want to absolutely. In fact, actually, because we're about to talk about the big thing. So,
sorry. Before you do that, then the race was go on, do something. Nothing's happening, but I can't stop watching this, which is weird because I know someone's going to say, "But this is an old-fashioned racetrack," and you always say an old-fashioned racetrack is racing. There still was.
Yeah, but this is what it gave us. There was still 100%, and it was giving us some. It was giving us some really interesting stuff across the whole entire thing. You did have some overtakes a little bit further down the field. You had where your strategy had to absolutely be considered. It gave us what an old-fashioned racetrack gives us. In fact, we're going to do an episode when there's a gap without a weekend. We're going to do an episode where we actually discuss what we mean because we constantly keep saying this. We're going to discuss why we wax on about these old school racetracks, your Spain, your Catalonia, your Spa, your Imola, your Canada, and how they are significantly better than your Miami, Saudi Arabia, etc., etc. So we will do an episode for that. Yep. I don't know when. It'll be when we've got a gap coming up with no Grand Prix. Because even though it wasn't the most exciting race, especially when you consider it to what we saw in Spain a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't the most exciting race. However, you didn't take your eyes off the screen because there was so much going on that you had to consider. There was higher deg. And to be fair, that's where it goes against, I'm going to contradict myself here. It goes against where making compounds a step softer actually worked in the race for me. They were never going to touch the C6, but the fact that the medium was the C5, I actually thought, if that's the C3 and the C4, that's a one-stop. And we're bored.
All right, you've got a point there, but I still don't get. Well, look, we're disagreeing. I don't get why we bring tyres that can't be used in the race. I want 3 tyres that they can choose from in the race.
Yeah,
and they couldn't. They couldn't choose the C6. It was pointless.
And because you only get 2 sets of hards, no one ever knows what the hard's going to be like until you put it in the race. Because no one's going to waste a set during practice. So I agree. I think they need to look at that because there's no. You're not going to use it unless you. You're not going to use the C6 in the race. I think the fact that we had the C4 and the C5 as the hard and the medium, though, did make it so that couldn't be a one-stop.
I still don't get why they don't do something stupid like the C4, the C5, and the C2.
Yeah, just to absolutely throw a cat amongst pigeons.
Yeah, just put a bit of a gap in it and let's see who's more brave and willing to go. I'm going to go to the last lap and box.
I do. Yeah, do you remember when Albon did that?
Yeah.
I do think the softer compound for the medium and the hard this time did. I think it worked in the race.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it worked in Monaco when they tried it there. I think it did work here because I think there was a lot that would have been a one stop otherwise. So I was a fan of it this weekend. Other than the fact that the C6 is just nonsense and they're never going to use it in a race. Why not just have 2 compounds?
Well, there is
that
as
more
well.
Sets. Just don't use it. just give them the C4 and the C5 as a medium and hard, or as a medium and a soft. Whatever you want to do, just don't
Give them all.
Yeah, just put wets on,
No, just you've got C1 to 6,
and you just need to pick how many sets of each tire you want.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've gone off it.
Yeah, sorry, we're waxing on about this again.
We have, and what was really interesting as we headed into lap. So I've got the numbers written down because I thought this was going to change. By lap 54, so with 16 laps left, the top 5 are separated by 11 seconds. By lap 58, so just 4 laps later, that same top 5 are separated by just 5.6 seconds. It was building to something that was going to be immense. And then on lap 66,
history repeated itself.
Yeah, we had an absolute carbon copy of Canada 2011. So for those of you who don't know what happened in Canada 2011, Lewis Hamilton was just being completely outclassed and outsmarted by his far superior teammate Jenson Button.
No bias there whatsoever.
No. Jenson Button was just proving why he is the best driver, and that Lewis Hamilton's 7 World Championships are all because of Jenson Button, because he learned so much. I'm joking. But Lewis was the young gun at that time. He only been in sport for 4 years. He was a young, one-time world champion, admittedly, though. Both were. And he was really trying to put the pressure on Jenson. Jenson just was the cool, calm one who made him effectively do something that wasn't there to be done. In 2011, Hamilton drove up the back of Button, and both were taken out of the race. On lap 66 in 2025, replaced Lewis Hamilton with Lando Norris and replaced Jenson Button with Oscar Piastri, and the exact same thing happened. The only difference on this occasion that it didn't end Piastri's race. I'll give my opinion about the whole thing, and then we'll ask Phil for his. I think I'm glad that papaya rules exist, because we don't want to see. There was an argument, I suppose, to say that Norris was lapping faster than Piastri up until that moment. So could McLaren have got involved and said to Piastri, let Lando through because he's got a better chance at getting Antonelli? Realistically, McLaren aren't going to do that because that shows a favouritism for the World Championship. There are rumours that Oscar Piastri has a clause in his contract now that says McLaren can't favour Lando Norris over him, and rightly so, because Oscar Piastri is a World Championship leader. So I'm glad papaya rules exist. Zach Brown's been saying for weeks that it is inevitable that while they exist, the two cars are going to make contact with one another, and it happened yesterday. It's bound to happen. We saw it however many times with Rosberg and Hamilton in the Mercedes, specifically in 2015 and 2016. We saw it between Webber and Vettel when they were teammates at Red Bull.
Vettel and Leclerc as well. They'd got each other enough.
Teammates at Ferrari. We saw it between Coulthard and Hakkinen when they were together in the late 90s at McLaren. It happens. We saw it between Villeneuve and Frentzen, although Frentzen wasn't really much of a name. But he
was a good driver, though.
He was, to be fair, in the 97, 98 sort of Williams time. So the only teammate who's ever had the only driver who's ever really had a teammate who's never threatened him to that level is probably Max Verstappen and Michael Schumacher, and it's because they've been so far away from their respective teammates that they don't have that. It's not a racing incident.
Mansell and Patrese.
Yes. Oh, and Senna and Prost.
I was going to say Senna and Prost did collide. Mansell and Patrese were very well behaved together.
We could go, yeah. So, look,
what we're saying is
it's happened, and it was bound to happen. Lando Norris has taken full responsibility for it.
Don't go too far with that.
Too far with that. Lando Norris has taken full responsibility for it. It was bound to happen. Lando, I think the famous phrase from Senna is the moment you stop going for a gap is the moment you stop being a Formula One driver. There's an element of that here, but I think Lando tried to create a gap that just wasn't there. Do you want to give your bit? Because I want to carry on about how I think this will develop throughout the rest of the
okay. Mine's quite blunt, and it's probably going to have the guy next to me shaking his head. Papaya rules don't mean anything. He went and did something very silly.
How do you mean they don't mean anything?
Well, it doesn't matter whether they say go race or don't go race. He drove up the back of someone. It doesn't matter if they say you're allowed to go race. Yeah. You don't race by driving up the back end of somebody.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I like Papaya rules, but not to the point. Yeah, 100%. And he shouldn't have driven into the back of Piastri. I think he's just. This is what. And okay, so I'll give my next bit, which is the future bit of it, which is where I'm going to contextualize it.
I did cold crash, by the way.
Yesterday. You did actually, to be fair, like 3 laps before. And I would have texted you back at the time, but my phone went out the window. No, and look. I think the one thing that's going forward is this is one thing that Lando Norris absolutely has to go away now before Australia, and this has to be his top priority. Austria. Sorry, Austria. This has to be his top
Dumb and Dumber moment.
Yeah, I know, yeah. This has to be his top priority to work on. He never wins a battle with Max Verstappen because Max knows how to wind him up.
Mm-hmm.
And Lando always, whether it's Lando's fault or not, Lando always pays the punishment with Max.
Yeah.
Oscar Piastri now knows that he has got that same win. If he didn't know it before, he now knows that he's got that same power over Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri did absolutely nothing wrong. I'm not saying that he did. Not a thing wrong. But what he has done is he's made it incredibly difficult for Lando to get past. And all he's done is basically said to Lando, if you're going to get past, you're going to have to do something stupid, which is going to write your own race off. And that's what he's tried to do there. So now Lando needs to go and figure this out. Top priority. Because Oscar Piastri will just continue to do that to him, because Piastri will know that Max has done it to him in the past. You look at Austria last year, for instance.
Yeah.
That was Max Verstappen's fault. I still stand by that. But Max knows exactly how to wind Lando Norris up. Oscar Piastri will now know that too. That's got to be Lando's top priority, to cut that out.
Don't get me wrong. I hope that I'm proven wrong, because I know you're a Norris fan as much as we don't like seeing the other person win.
Who's the other person?
Between the two of us.
Oh, get
I can't stand the idea of Norris being a world champion before Leclerc. But right now, Piastri's won it.
Yeah.
He's got Norris in his pocket.
Yeah, I agree. That's
again. I hope I'm wrong, but
well, I mean, to be fair, look, I love Lando, but I love Oscar. So I was a McLaren fan before I was a Lando Norris fan.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, that for me, it was just. It's such a shame to see.
It was a frantic, desperate move that wasn't on the cards.
It wasn't. It was inevitable. And I think I said in a message to you last night, and I hope this comes out right, because I know what I mean by this. The point swing is worse for Lando if he tries that, if he's second and Oscar's first. So I don't know if that's played a part in his thinking, that he's thought, Oscar's only fourth. If I get this, I'd say I make 2 points. If I don't, I lose 2 points. But obviously what ended up happening was it was...
I get what you're saying, but... And I get the centre reference. I genuinely do, and Schumacher would have done it as well, all that. But
Schumacher would have made sure they both didn't finish the race.
Of course he would.
And would have made sure he was 2 points clear.
Yeah, and I think
a la Hill.
Yep, and nearly Villeneuve.
And ironically, he went for the exact same move a year after
in Jerez and messed it up a bit.
Sorry,
but yeah, it was he had Piastri.
Yeah.
There was no way Piastri was staying ahead for, what was it, lap 66? Was it 70? 70 laps?
Yeah, so
he was past him.
Yeah. Although the only thing is, again, I'm only trying to play devil's advocate. I don't know if he did, because Piastri had started to get Antonelli's DRS.
I don't think it would have made a difference so much longer.
I can see, all I'm saying is I can see in Lando Norris's rash mind how he thought, now he's got DRS from Antonelli, I ain't getting him. So I need to do. They said it in commentary. I think he's thought I need to catch him by surprise, and he's.
I like Piastri.
Yeah. Like Piastri is so good at. But this for me, genuinely, and we've said this before. Piastri's coolness will be what wins him the World Championship, and I don't want to beat down on Lando Norris, because I have a genuine concern about Lando Norris.
Rosberg said the same, didn't he? This could spiral into something.
And I don't want to beat down on him, and he's never going to see that I've said this. But for me, if he wants to win that World Championship, he absolutely has to. And it's not as simple as saying cut out the mistakes, because it's more than that.
It's get on top of whatever you're thinking.
Your emotions, and because Max Verstappen constantly wound you up, and that's why you didn't win in 24. You never really had a chance to win in 24, admittedly.
No,
and that's why you didn't take that fight really to him. Oscar Piastri is going to do the same thing to you in 2025. You need to get on top of that.
I mean, how many championships can you come second in before it impacts you? You know, look at Coulthard.
Yeah, look at Webber.
Yeah.
How many have we had?
We do have. Well, so do you want to do the results and everything before we move on to the question that was posed?
No, because it's relevant to this, isn't it?
We do have a question from a keen follower of ours. You may have seen him on the couch.
Yeah.
It's other Phil. How do you feel about Norris quickly admitting full fault for the accident? Can I go first?
Yes.
He's silly.
Okay.
He should not have accepted any blame for
You know, it's
that
not an
whatsoever.
insurance claim.
No, he should not have accepted any blame because I'm going to list of drivers and you tell me if they'd have accepted the blame and then tell me what they've got in common. Ayrton Senna.
No.
Michael Schumacher.
No.
Sebastian Vettel.
No.
Max Verstappen. Even Nigel Mansell would not have accepted.
He's like the nicest world champion.
Would not have accepted the blame for that accident because it was racing and they're there to race. He's just turned around to Piastri and said, "I'm sorry, I'm not as good as you." That's what that admittance says to me. Is I'm sorry, I'm not up for this fight. And by the way, I am not beating down on Lando Norris in any way, and I am concerned that the lad needs to pull it round. But that is like saying, "I'm sorry, sir.
You're better than me."
You're better than me." And it happened a little bit. Austria last year when he went on the attack and blamed Verstappen. Look at the Norris we saw at the end of last season.
Yeah. And it's not, and this is, sorry.
No, so that's my point is, by saying it's my fault, you've just said, I'm not cut out to be a world champion this year.
I personally think he's right to do it, but I think the next thing is that it's what we see next from him. So I think he's right to own up to that because in essence, what I'm saying is he's right to do is to go, my fault. He interrupted his own interview, didn't he, post-race, to apologise to Oscar Piastri. I think he's right. Personally, I think he's right to do that because they've still got to have a harmonious. And I think the more harmonious they are as teammates, the more McLaren will let them race and not get involved. So I think if that becomes bitter, McLaren will step in and say by halfway through the race or whatever.
But that could benefit him as well if he starts pulling his finger out in qualifying.
It could, but I think he knows that it's not going to. I think
so. I'm right because he's just admitted that he's not going to. What I'm saying is,
I think it's right. I think he's right to apologise depending on what we see next. And this is where I see the whole concern. I think he's right to apologise if what he's going to do, he's going to go and dust himself off, figure out what to do to keep himself calm, and then come back in Austria and just absolutely wipe the floor with Piastri. That's bold, but you know what I mean.
He has to.
I think he's right.
Or he has to by Silverstone because that is going to be the world's biggest psychological blow.
Yeah.
Norris did it to Piastri in Australia.
If
Piastri comes and gets one over him round Silverstone and batters Norris, I don't think he's picking himself up this season.
I think my bigger concern. So for me, and we finally disagree. It's weird, actually. I think we. If you watch the Bahrain episode, we apologised and said if we never agreed on anything. It's taken us till now to disagree. Yeah. I think he's right to, providing he can dust himself off and park it, get rid of it, and it doesn't become a thing. That's the big thing for me. And I'm genuinely concerned about Lando Norris as well, because I think the perversion of Lando Norris that you were right with Austria, it lit a fire under him when that happened with it. And it looked like he genuinely might take a serious challenge to Max in the World Championship after Austria.
Oh, God, yeah.
He took a lot of damage to it, but it looked like he was there for the fight.
Absolutely. And I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because in no way do I want to belittle anything to do with any potential risk to mental health. And I don't want to see Lando, so I don't want to see any race driver suffer. But I'd still think he was wrong.
My bigger concern, I think, like I say, I think if he's prepared to just accept the ownership and from it and move on, then I worry that he's apologised because of what you said. I worry that he's apologising because he's absolutely sat somewhere now. I read some comments off him this morning, actually, before we filmed this, where he said he's not looking forward to going to the MTC because it's going to be horrible for him to meet all those people that he let down. And it's comments like this. Somebody needs to, I genuinely mean this, I think somebody needs to really take Lando Norris under the arm. I know we've heard in the past that Vettel's looking after, keeping in touch with him and stuff. It worries me that he's so quick to beat himself up. I think there needs to be a part of him where he says, apologies, that was me, went for someone that wasn't there, let's move on. I think he's right to apologise, but not in the manner that he has. I think the way that he's doing it is very much
I think the apology had to be behind closed doors.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
if you're going to do it.
Yeah, possibly. But I don't like the way he's gone about it. I think he's right to own up to his mistake and say, "Come on, right, let's crack on." I don't like the way that he's. I don't like the way that he's gone about it. I think he's beaten himself up, and I hate to hear anybody in any circumstance doing that to himself. So,
right.
Please, Lando, just smile again.
Moving on very quickly because I'm aware that we're, as per usual, running over. Great win by Russell. He didn't even look bothered at all through the race. That was stellar. Up for contract renewal next year, or by the end of this year. Good God, they'd be a fool to let him go.
Yeah.
Mega
shame it was under safety car. Sorry,
shame that he didn't, but he'd have finished it under his own steam anyway.
He would, but it would have been nice for him to have done that.
Fantastic from Antonelli. Max got the best out of it that he could, even boxing to protect positions. In true sly, typical Red Bull and Max Verstappen fashion. So, again, great performance. Piastri came in 4th, a championship result, I suppose. Leclerc 5th, Hamilton 6th, even with all the damage. The god of all and my driver of the weekend, Fernando Alonso, came in 7th. 8th place and...
Nico Hülkenberg, appreciation point. It needs pointing out that car is horrible. We have asked on this for a million times what gets the Sauber drivers up for work. Nico Hülkenberg is proving me. I said when he went to Sauber, yes, he's going to be there for the Audi thing, but I don't think Audi have got themselves a driver that is going to be capable of taking that car forward. That was what I said at the time.
Looks like they have.
I absolutely, live on the internet, well, not live, but on the internet now, for Nico Hülkenberg to see if he wants to. Nico, I apologise. Wow. Just for this season.
Agreed, wow. Especially the last 2 races, showing true class. 9th was Ocon. 10th was Sainz, who did well to get himself back up into the points. 11th was Behrman. Have we said Bortoletto yet?
No, but we've said Sauber, so...
We haven't said Bortoletto, because you didn't say Hülkenberg would be a future world champion.
I am now.
Sonoda 12th, Colapinto 13th. I don't think they've improved any by changing drivers.
Alpine are going backwards.
Bortoletto, future world champion, apparently 14th. Gasly, since we said he's done well, has done badly, 15th even. Hadja, 16th, since we said he'd done well. You can see the link here. Stroll, last of the finishers, look particularly fed up again. I'd love to drive that car, Aston, if you want to give me a shout. I won't fit, I'm 6'2" and huge, but put me in.
He's there for 26, isn't he?
Q, Phil's most pointless penalty of the weekend.
So to finish the 3 retirements, Norris, Lawson and Albon.
I was building up to it because of the Norris one.
I've just realised, I do apologise.
Q Phil's most pointless penalty of the weekend. Lando Norris for causing an accident, and because he was still qualified as a finisher because he did so many laps, 5-second penalty. He parked up at the edge of the pit wall and was going no further. That is the most pointless penalty I've ever witnessed.
Good thing for him, though, is it doesn't carry over to Austria, which is good.
Sorry, yes, but what a ridiculous thing to do. And as we're on penalties...
Yeah, so this is where we said, even though it's on Monday, we don't necessarily know where we got up to with this. There was a late appeal from Red Bull to appeal George Russell's victory of it for...
bit of a lack of class, that.
Yeah, it was. It was basically they accused him of not being within 10 car lengths of the safety car, which you should be, and effectively driving erratically under the safety car, i.e. braking, going too slow, and whatever else. Come on, Red Bull, you're better than that.
He has been relieved of that appeal. Sorry, it's the FAA pointed out that he only applied 30 psi's worth of brake pressure when Verstappen went past him, and of course he's going to drop behind when he's warming his tyres and brakes, and the safety car is accelerating.
Red Bull,
right decision to be honest here.
Agreed.
Red Bull clutching at straws, considering they went after McLaren for putting water in the tyres, and I feel like you're
sulking.
Yeah,
your car's not good enough. You're sulking.
But you've got the best driver on the grid still, so let's focus on him rather than...
Yes, wake up.
Other penalties, very quickly. 7 drivers, I can't remember all the names. I do know Leclerc and Piastri and Antonelli were involved. I think it was pretty much everyone up until Alonso plus Behrman and Ocon were under investigation for not following safety car procedures properly. What that turned out to be is after the checkered flag, whilst Russell was crawling along slowly, celebrating rightly, they drove past him to get back to the pit lane. Now, it was still under safety car conditions, so they can't overtake.
Come on.
They got a slap on the wrist and told that they're very naughty little boys. Again, a bit of a mute point, but again, it leads us to 5 hours after the race, not knowing the result. Absolutely pathetic. But there we go. Anyway, moving on.
Quick run through the Drivers' Championship then, just whilst we're on it. So Piastri still leads with 198 points. He's now 22 points clear of Lando Norris, basically a race win. Norris second on 176. Verstappen a further 21 back on 155. Then Russell 136. Leclerc in fourth on 104. Hamilton sixth on 79. And then Antonelli rounding off the top seven with 63. With the constructors, McLaren, and this is why I think they'll continue to encourage Papaya rules, still running away with it with 374. Mercedes into second with 199.
It's a good result for them.
Was a very good weekend very good weekend for Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
Ferrari third with 183. Red Bull in fourth with 162, and Williams in fifth with Carlos
Huge
Sainz
gap.
number 55.
Yeah. Austria next, and then Silverstone. Phil versus Ant versus Phil.
Yeah, so Phil, again, based on the countback rule, neither of us predicted the winner, which I think both of us have done once. And it's 3-3 now, so it proves how good we are. So Phil said Oscar Piastri would win. I said Lando Norris. He didn't finish. So that makes it 3-3 now. So all of a sudden, Phil's back in the position. So for Ant v Phil for Australia. For Austria. I've done that again.
Australia, put another shrimp on the barbie.
Round one, fight.
Who are you going for?
I want to say Norris, but I don't know how he's going to react. I'm going Max Verstappen.
Do you know what? Max was going to be my shout because it's Austria. It's Red Bull.
I nearly went left field and said Leclerc after all these upgrades, but knowing Ferraris,
they'll get it wrong.
Yep.
You're going Max.
I'm going Leclerc for Silverstone already. Or Hamilton for Silverstone. Anyway, Max.
Track temperature at Austria is
Usually quite warm.
but is it going to be any warmer than Canada? I'm going to go Piastri.
I think it's a safe
I was
bet.
going to go Russell,
Oh, you know what?
but I think it might be too hot, and I think there's a lot of more high speed corners. There's a lot of straights which the Mercedes won't necessarily. There's 3 DRS zones back to back to back. That straight line speed is not. Although they were quick in Canada, but it isn't traditionally there. I
Not out of a very tight corner as well, which they are every time.
I think I was going to go Russell, but I think McLaren or Red Bull will have the strength. It obviously isn't going to be Tsunoda.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go Oscar. And I tend to flip flop between the two McLaren drivers, but I think this is a good shout. Although I'm not going to go for McLaren and Silverstone. I don't think it's going to be that. Anyway, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah, no, sorry, we're jumping on.
Phil's going to go Max Verstappen. I'm going to go Oscar Piastri. There will be an episode next week. There is no race. But there will be an episode next week where we will discuss the 2026 regulations. Join us for that. But as for this week, thank you very much for joining us.
And look, we can disagree.
Yes, we can. Have a good week, guys.
Yep. Bye-bye.